So,
Yeah.
all right, we're on.
Okay. Doesn't hurt, right?
Does not.
Great. Okay, so
One question, is this a
Yeah.
public meeting? Is this a public meeting?
yeah, I think all the steering committee meetings are open to the public. Yes.
Was it published anywhere?
Yes, the agenda was posted.
Where was it
post-
posted?
We post in the clerk's office. We post, I believe it's posted online as well.
Under what? I couldn't find it.
I think it was under the Board of Selectmen agendas last time I looked.
Yeah, it is under the Board of Selectmen.
Would never thought to look there.
Sorry, we'll try and streamline that a little bit.
Pam's been doing all of that. She posts the agendas, the minutes, and that's where she's been doing it all along.
Okay.
All right, so the main agenda item obviously is to, hopefully you all have had a chance to look at the draft housing plan. And really what I'd love to do is just get your feedback. Has everyone had a chance to review the draft?
I did, yep.
Yeah, I overviewed it.
Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of the bulk of what I was thinking we'd spend our time on, was getting your feedback on that. The goal would be, either at this meeting or, again, depending on how many suggestions or edits or additions this committee wants me to make. The next step is really to make sure that this committee is comfortable with the draft plan, and then we publish a draft plan for everyone to give their feedback. But I want to make sure that this housing plan steering committee is comfortable with the draft before we put it out to other for other folks to give feedback on. So that's kind of the goal of the meeting today, and we can talk through what some of the next steps are as well, in terms of the adoption process. But do you want me to, how do you want to go through this? Do you want me to share screen? And I assume you don't want to necessarily go through all 25 pages, page by page. Does anybody have how do you want to give your feedback?
I think even if you went page by page, it'll be a review, and we'd say, okay, we don't need anything on this page, and move on to the next one. So we could go.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. How
I
do you
was
guys
going to
do?
suggest too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm going back and forth to try to remember.
No problem. All right, let me share screen here. All right. So I did note in the agenda that I would love to have some pictures of Winchester to stick into the plan. Certainly would be nice to have a nice picture of the town for the cover page. And I don't know if
I've got a shareable folder of pictures that we're going to be trying to use for more social media and website, purposes. So I'll send a link to that.
That would be awesome. Okay. So obviously this needs a little more, a picture or something on it, but that's the cover. The table of contents, I did end up inserting the zoning map in the land use section.
Oh, good.
But we can look at it once we get there. It's pretty small, so we could also have it as an appendix if you want, or we could just give people a link to it on the website, whatever. But we can talk about that when we get to that page if you want. And then I did include some information about this. This was just in red because I didn't want to forget to do it. To put some information in there about the Housing Authority and the Development Corp. Does anybody have any table of contents questions or comments?
No.
All right.
Just a question, Jocelyn,
Yeah.
on the, where can I go for more information?
Yep.
What will that be linked to? Is that in the appendix?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of resource links in the back
Okay,
that are just, again, instead of making the plan super long, we just referenced a bunch of other, if people want to read the regional
Oh, I
housing
see it.
needs
I see it.
assessment, or yeah.
got it. All right.
So that's what's in that section. And then I didn't include it here, but we will include, unless you don't want to, typically we include the results of the resident housing needs survey. Again, we could either put that on the town's website and have just a link to it, or we could, actually attach it to the final PDF version of this plan. That's kind of up to you guys, but usually the appendix includes the survey results and the inventory table, which is in there of kind of what you guys have now in terms of dedicated affordable units.
Mhm.
So the introduction section again is just kind of, why are we doing this? Who's on the steering committee? And how we're defining affordability. Any questions about that?
No, I thought it was good.
And then there's a section on kind of trying to briefly describe why housing has become so unaffordable. Again, just describing the way that housing prices have risen faster than incomes over the last 30 years. And kind of defining again, as we did in that last forum, what we mean when we say dedicated affordable. And I did have a note in here. I don't know if you guys noticed it for you
Yeah.
guys, because again, we know that 82 of the units that are on the state's list are not actually dedicated affordable anymore. So I just what I've done here is refer to the state's list because that is the state's official list. I just didn't know. I just wanted to make sure that the committee knows that the state's list is not accurate.
So is there something we can do to get that list accurate?
So, yes, according to the Department of Housing, and I've been in touch with them about this because you might not be shocked to know that there are quite a few mistakes in quite a few towns on the state's inventory. Basically the Department of Housing, once a year, they send something to the town, I believe to the chief elected official. And I know the chief elected official gets a lot of emails and requests from the state. So I know in other towns that I've worked with, some of the chief elected officials do not ever remember receiving this, but once a year, I believe in the summertime, they send this out and they ask the chief elected official whether the list is accurate or not. So the town should have the chance to look at the state's 2021 list, which is what I'm referencing here, and make whatever corrections it wants to during that annual process.
Would it be okay to reference the state list, but then to also even just asterisk a comment that explains that it's not accurate based on this? 82 units is a lot of units.
Yeah, I agree. And again, the other thing about this is it does get you under the 10%. if you, and that's not insignificant. But it's true whether it's on the state's list or not,
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, certainly we can note that in here. I just really wanted to ask the committee how you wanted to handle it.
I have a question on that.
Yeah,
First, thanks for doing all the work and putting it all together. There's a lot of stuff in here. I'm concerned about a lot of the data personally in there, and a lot of how things read. When we say homes, we're not talking about like single family homes. We're talking about housing units, correct?
yes, probably, yeah.
Right. So when we say there's 609 homes, could that be read by somebody? There's 609 like single family homes, but they're really housing units at these at like Chestnut Grove and all the ones that you cited, correct?
Yeah. I mean, some of them are single family homes. Because some of them are like Chaffa mortgages, for example.
Okay.
So it's not like all 609 that I'm talking about there are apartment units.
But some are.
Some of them are.
So should we say residents then instead of homes? Maybe some kind of clarification?
Or a slash that says, housing unit.
Yeah, I can use housing unit wherever you want me to. If you would.
I would also say for this committee to take the 10 point something percent below 10 point something percent is not, I don't think, good for us at this moment. I know it may be good for some other purpose, but I think you're gonna, if this committee were to do that and make that significant change, I think there needs to be more discussion at other levels.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the Department of Housing relies on the town to make the corrections to the inventory list. I don't think they're asking the town to only make the corrections that they feel like making.
Well, no, that's not true. But I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing this, in terms of the 82 units and stuff. And it's a significant change that would cause all sorts of tumbling through our system.
Yeah, well, I think the only thing it changes that I can think of is that you would then be open to 830G.
Exactly,
proposals.
which is a significant change. Because then it allows the developers to come in and not have to adhere to certain regulations that we have.
Yes, that's the case. Yeah.
Correct. So that is significant.
As much as it
Hugely
is significant, I also just have to weigh in and say, it's not the town's decision, or it wasn't the town's decision to change over these 80 some odd units, right? It's something we're going to have to grapple with and we're going to have to deal with. And, maybe we need to start having some of those conversations about how this is going to impact us as soon as possible. But omitting the data just because it is something we're going to have to grapple with, I don't think really helps the problem as much as it just maybe buys us a little bit more time to deal with it. But it's something we're going to have to tackle pretty quickly one way or another.
Well, I just want to say for the record that I shared this information in the second meeting that this committee had. So I don't know, Candy, why it's the first time you're hearing it, but the first meeting we had, we questioned Litchfield Heights. I called them, I asked them, I got this information and I shared it.
Mm.
So
the other thing that would be interesting is to, I don't know, just in terms of Litchfield Heights and whether there might be a way to work with the property owners to you know, have them apply for some more, you know, state or federal funding to do renovations on those units and then get them re-income restricted. Because I'm guessing, I mean, they are older, right? All of those units.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they could pretty easily use some rehab. Just because everything older could use rehab, except me. So I just wonder if that might be a strategy we might want to include. I mean, I don't know if they'd be open to it, but if we could, you know, there are investors out there now. There was an investor that just purchased one of the properties in Torrington that was dedicated affordable and got a bunch of money to do major rehab, and that money was tied to affordability. I mean, I don't know, it'll be worth a try, right? Just approaching them and seeing if they'd be, because again, that is one of your goals here, is to try to preserve what you have. And if there's a way to make those units count again, that would be nice, right?
Sounds ideal, honestly, to me.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna put a note down here in the strategy section.
Why would they have changed in the first place? Would that have been a timing thing? Like they were under some certain restriction for a certain period of time, and when that time was up, they went to market rate housing?
Correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
a lot of times you get like, if you get like tax credit funding, for example, really most of the funding comes with a certain period of time, usually 30 years, sometimes a little longer,
It could've
sometimes
been
a little
30 years for
shorter.
those.
And once those 30 years are up, those income income restrictions go away. So that's probably what happened here. So, you know, again, I will, so don't we have something about preserving? Yeah. It's Litchfield Heights, right?
Yeah, it's also commonly referred to as Nanny Drive. I think there's two up there.
NANY?
NANNI.
Okay.
On this side.
All right, I just want to make sure I don't lose anything here. Okay, so I'm just going to keep that note in here for now. Yeah, what do you guys want me to make this as an official note or leave that out for now?
I'd leave it out until we get more clarification on it. Again, because as this plan moves forward, it has significance. And I think it's a huge significance.
Okay, any other questions? Or so Candy, do you want me to to replace the word homes with housing units in everywhere or anywhere that?
Maybe you could just make an asterisk in the appendix or something like that that says the word home includes housing units and CHFA houses or something like that.
Okay. Or I could put that in the intro.
Yeah. I don't think you have to go through and change everything.
Okay.
I have another question about data in here, and at
Yep.
one of the last meetings I was at was talking about when we look at this affordable, I keep thinking about this all the time. When we talk about affordability, I think that when you the definition of 30%, et cetera, that most of this in here is housing that is subsidized in one way or the other. Correct?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure.
Some of it, most of it.
Well, if you're talking about whether like the strategies and the goals are broader than just what I call dedicated affordable, which,
Right. So
but
dedicated is subsidized and helped in some way by government help.
right. And through that help, again, that's where you get the making sure that the folks that live there are actually income eligible and actually only paying 30% of their
Right.
income.
So there's the data that we have in terms of our housing, just our real estate values.
Yeah.
I talked about it the last time. I talked to Josh about this the other day, is the number of homes that we have under $200,000, is that in here? Is the values in our 2018 grand list? Do we have that in here? I went through and I didn't quite find that.
Yeah. So we talk about your existing housing stock in terms of types of housing, age of housing, again, dedicated homes.
Right.
I think we talked about increasing.
But I don't know that it talked about current values.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought we had a section in here that talked about we have there's a part in here just
Sales.
about home sales prices.
Right. So yeah, I saw that part. But there's also the data that includes, how much of our housing is between 100 and 200,000, 200 to 300,000 in terms of being able to, purchase a home here. If you wanted to purchase a property, that's how much, there's no value in here. And when we talk about affordable, one of the things that I think about is, can people, and we talk it through this document about people maybe buying their first home or buying that, but there's no data in here to do that. So when we talk about affordable, it always seems to mean that dedicated funding to help stay under the 30%.
So are you asking, if you want me to include more data in here around home values, I can certainly do that. Is that what?
Yeah, because I think that's important in the town when we look at everything that's happening is, we have a current stock that costs so much. And so throughout the plan, we talk about making more development affordable. So if we were to make more development affordable, does that mean somebody can come in and build new houses that are only going to cost 30% of someone's income without some sort of government assistance? Or does this mean that, or is it going to be where most anything that is developed to be part only to fit that 30% of somebody's income is going to mean and I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I had it. So to get to the 30% of someone's income, I think that job's either going to have to pay more, we're going to have to attract people with higher salaries, or we're going to have to provide some sort of government subsidy or help. I don't know that a lot of this other things would work. Like if we built new non-subsidized houses, would this still fit under this definition and the data that is listed?
So from my experience, I mean, if you want to have housing, either home ownership or rental housing, that's affordable to households at 80% of the area median income or less. And again, meaning it only costs 30% of their income. It's almost impossible in this housing environment to construct that without some kind of state or federal funding. Yeah. So if that's your question, whether it's possible to create this type of housing without subsidy, I would say probably not.
Okay, so then I'm wondering if, because we seem to be, and you mentioned in the report that our housing prices, like when they go for sale and stuff, are I won't use the word affordable because I kind of like, affordable speaks in a lot of different ways. And I guess that's where I always continue to struggle with it. But like somebody could buy a house with more land and a bigger house in Winston for $300,000 than they could in Avon, correct?
Right. Yes.
And you mentioned that in here. So I think that's why having the current, number of units that are valued between certain benchmarks,
Mhm.
I think would be good to add the data in here.
Okay, I can do that.
I mean, I did those rough counts, but I think that the assessor's office could probably do a quick Excel file and probably give you a more accurate count.
Okay. All right. Do we want to go back to going through this page by page, or I'll just quickly go to this page about the timeline.
Mhm.
Obviously this is sort of trying to let people know who maybe haven't been involved in the process, what the different steps that the steering committee have gone through. And the stuff in red is kind of the next steps. It's in red because they haven't happened yet. But so here we are in June, discussing the draft plan. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, once we have the draft plan, we have everything in it that the committee this committee wants to see in it. Ideally, we would then take it to a planning and zoning commission meeting for the planning and zoning commission to say whether they believe this plan is consistent with the town plan of conservation and development. I was thinking that because we weren't able to have that in-person meeting about the housing plan, we could make, an extra effort to potentially invite anybody and everyone to come to that planning and zoning commission meeting to hear, which I assume would be in person, where they could hear about what's in the draft plan. We would also post it on the town website and give people 35 days to review it. But anyway, that we could have that in-person forum that got postponed happen at the planning and zoning commission meeting, where we'd have at least some captive audience of people, the planning and zoning commission members. And then we can make revisions kind of based on whatever feedback we might get from planning and zoning or any other residents or other boards or commission members that attend that meeting and or give us feedback outside of the meeting. Again, we do need to have the final draft plan on the town website for 35 days prior to holding a public hearing at the Board of Selectmen for the plan to be adopted. So what we were thinking about is trying to work towards doing that in either September or October. We did tell the state that we would be done by November. So that's kind of the next steps that would happen. Does that make sense to you guys?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, and ideally we get feedback from folks, anything they're concerned about, we get before we take it to the Board of Selectmen for adoption, so we don't kind of have to go back after that and do it all over again. All right. So that's the kind of page about the timeline and the process we have gone through to develop the plan. Does anybody have any questions about this kind of general fair housing information?
No, it's drilled in my brain.
Yeah. Yeah, realtors just have to know this stuff.
Every 2 years, we have the same class.
Well, it's always interesting, again, for me, that residents often ask, like, can we keep affordable housing only for people that currently live in Winstead? And, again, it's not even true of regular market rate housing. You can't say you can only live here if you're currently a resident or, so.
Yeah, that'd be steering.
Yeah, so it's, I think it's just, and it's just another opportunity to let people know what those fair housing rules are that really apply to all housing, whether it's affordable or not. And then we go into the section just summarizing the resident housing needs survey. Again, this was also kind of in those slides from the last presentation that we did. And then summarizing the student survey and the worker survey responses that we got.
Mhm.
Any questions or comments about that?
No, we drilled that one.
Okay. We talk about the demographic trends related to housing in terms of households with children. Again, that's something that is really declining in, the number of households with children is declining in all Litchfield County towns. Let's see, and then we talk about how many households you have that rent versus own. And this table just talks about income distribution by, how many households, renter households versus owner households, for example, earn less than 30% of the area median income, 50%, 80%, 100%, and then over 100%, just so you can kind of see what that looks like. So for example, you have more renter households that earn less than 30% of the area median income than owner households, which is pretty common. So that's, any questions about that? And then we talk about housing cost burdened households, which again, we covered at length in those other presentations that home sales prices have been rising over the last 5 years. And we've got the number of cost burden households by income level. So you can see, obviously households that are under 30% of the area median income are the most cost burdened. That makes sense, whether you're a renter or an owner. But again, this kind of, focuses in a little bit more about how many, that the orange bars here are the folks that are severely cost burdened. So they're paying more than 50% of their income on either their rent or their mortgage. And you do have quite a few owner households that are paying more than 50% of their income. And those are, under 50% of the area median income. Any questions about that? I put in this data that we haven't talked about before, but Katie, you've probably seen it in terms of the folks in Winchester that have called 211 over the last 2 years, and how many requests have been related to housing needs. That
I have a
is,
question about that,
yep.
because I've been on 211 and looked at the data and stuff before. Is this, the numbers of these calls, are these in the, 90, whatever it is? Are these 96 shelter requests? Are these 96 separate people or 96 requests that came in and we're counting in the algorithm?
I believe they're 96 separate requests. I do think that 211 does a pretty good job making sure that they have identified the person so that they don't double count requests. But I don't know, Katie, what do you have experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's my understanding as well. I've sat with many people and called 211, and some of them it's been for a second or third time. And so through that process, I'm able to see how that call is handled versus someone who calls for the very first time. And I've even asked a couple of times, if is this person going to be counted again if they've already called once or twice? Because Candy, you raised that question in the beginning, and it's also confusing because what if someone calls for, well, I won't go into that, but their explanation is that once someone is in the system, they can call 1 million times and they're not going to get counted again in that data that we're looking at. If they do call for another reason, then they will get entered into that other category. But if it's for the same category, once they're named and they have an HMIS number, they're not counted again.
So if they called and they requested shelter and rent assistance and low-cost housing and had landlord-tenant issues, they would be in each one of these. That's
my understanding.
Okay. But these 96 people are 96 individual requests, not one person calling 96 times.
Correct.
Can we verify this? And also under the Connecticut, when you say CT data's eviction map, is the evictions, are those through like the legal system?
Yes.
So CT data's, the data source is the legal system.
Yes. Yeah, I can put a link if you want. I can put a link to that. So anybody who wants to know more about where that data comes from.
And these evictions, the 362 home renters in the town of Winston that faced eviction in those 3 years, how does that compare to the other, like to Torrington or to Norfolk or Colebrook? Do we know?
You can certainly look that up. I didn't.
Okay. So when you put the link in, we could find it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And if you want, I could include those comparisons in this paragraph.
Well, based on the population size, it's kind of like apples and oranges,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
we
by
could,
percentage,
we could do something like a percentage. I'll take a look at it and see if it, if it would make sense.
As far as the 211 verifying that, I've tried to do that. I don't know if someone at the very top of the United Way would want to take on the task of verifying that for us, but the people that I've spoken with within the coordinated access network seem to feel comfortable that that data is as accurate as any data is. So I don't know. I guess it would, I don't know. I don't quite know how to verify that with 211 when I feel like I've attempted that already. I don't know. I could think about it, I guess. I'm not sure who to ask.
Okay. So,
You had a question for manufacturing employers?
yeah, oh, I don't know, is Ted on?
Ted
I'm
had
on,
to- Oh, there you go. There's Ted.
voice only.
Okay, well, I just put I think that you and I talked, like, can't entirely remember about, whether you had any employers, again, specifically, I was thinking about manufacturing employers who might just give us a sentence or two about what they see in terms of their employees' housing needs.
I think that's very possible and doable.
Okay,
That particular dynamic has come up twice at the Economic Development Commission's manufacturing breakfast,
okay,
where the local manufacturers have expressed that.
yeah,
And they would be happy to supply us with a line or two describing that, and kind of, they could on the side give us anecdotal evidence as to why they came to that conclusion.
yeah, that would be great. Would you mind reaching out to a couple of them by email?
I certainly will do that.
And literally just an email with a sentence or two would be terrific.
Okay.
Um,
and
And-
would that be?
Go ahead, Candy.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
Ted,
Candy.
Ted, I believe there was some discussion about it, and some of it was also about transportation, not
Correct.
just housing, right? That there's a shortage because people are coming in from Waterbury to work in these factories, and the manufacturers are looking for more help. But because there's not a good transportation system that comes up this way, that some people struggle with that, and the manufacturers are looking for people for that too. So it's not just about housing.
Correct. The housing, I think what we might hear or see in writing is the housing being kind of the solution to this transportation issue. So, they may tie it in together. So you're
Right,
correct.
so if
about that. Yeah,
so if the housing was cheaper here, then they could live here instead of living in Waterbury.
Yeah,
correct. It would-
or if there was just more housing,
Correct.
But more 30% or less of your income housing.
Correct. And maybe I can get the manufacturers to comment on what they're offering for wage levels and their openings
yeah,
to help.
that would be great.
Yeah, because we need to factor that into, these formulas that we're looking at.
Right. And it does show here that, for example, I had noted in here that manufacturing jobs in Winchester do seem to pay an average annual pay that's less than, for example, the statewide average. But that information would be of interest as well, just on an individual manufacturer level.
Sure. I'll gather up that information and send it off to everybody.
Terrific. Thanks, Ted.
You're welcome.
And yeah, and Ted, anything else, if you see anything else in this jobs and housing section, again, related to anything you hear from employers about their employees' housing needs, just let us know.
Okay. Even this morning, we had some Main Street business owners in for a focus group discussion. So I could follow up with them,
Yeah,
for this, since we all got together this morning. So happy to do that.
terrific. Any other jobs and housing comments or questions? Then we go into, again, kind of what you have now for your existing housing stock. Again, more of your housing stock than the county as a whole or the state as a whole is older. Again, and that sort of makes it more expensive to heat and cool and maintain typically. And then we talk about, again, your stock of dedicated affordable homes or units. And I added in this section that we talked about very briefly at the last meeting about regional housing needs. Again, partly because I know that these housing plans are going to be reviewed by some statewide organizations, and they're going to be looking for some discussion of kind of the regional need. So this section was this paragraph was kind of in an effort to speak to that and also make it clear that, all towns need to do their part. So I don't know. Do you guys have questions about this?
No, thank you for including that, because I think that's significant in my mind.
Okay. All right. So then we go on to the kind of assessment of what your current zoning regulations allow. I don't know if you guys have questions about this. It's just really just a summary of your, residential zoning uses. I did put a section in here about what is 830G, partly because of the 10% question. Just to also just let people, that does affect zoning. And it's a question that often comes up. I did have this question for Pam or someone in the land use office, which I could maybe follow up with her on. But in your zoning regulation table of uses, it talks about affordable housing being allowed by special permit, basically in all the residential zones. But there doesn't appear to be an actual section in the zoning regulations that talk about how that is defined, or whether it, whether there's any different setbacks or density requirements or anything like that. So I'll follow up with Pam unless any of you guys know about that, because it was just unclear to me. I could have missed it. Anybody know about that?
I would imagine if it's affordable housing, depending on what it is, it would just follow town regulations on that type of housing. So single family would be the same as a 3-family or 4-family. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. Most of the other towns where I've reviewed their zoning regulations on this, they have a specific section in the zoning regulations that deal with affordable housing. So I'll circle back with Pam on that. All right. Any other questions about this? I also just, again, wanted to make sure folks knew about the dedicated open space that you have in town, and that would not accommodate housing. Any other questions about that? Okay.
It is awfully small.
Oh yeah, well, this is your, oh yeah, this is your zoning map. I'm sure no one can read that legend. So do you want me to have, to include the zoning map in the appendix, or stick in a whole page with it, or put a link to it?
I guess maybe a link.
All right. So then we get into the goals and strategies section. I have this in here again because, this text about whether you guys want to come up with some kind of goal for a possible number of new housing opportunities that you would like to see created in town over the next 5 years. Most of the other towns that I'm working with are doing that. The city of Torrington actually has, I want to say 150 or 200 units of dedicated affordable housing currently being built. So they're kind of like, that's what we're doing. So that's kind of an easier for them to come up with that number. But we don't have to do it. I just know, again, that as these plans are being reviewed by other entities, they will look for the town to have potentially come up with a unit goal. So how do you guys feel about coming up with a unit goal?
Well, we
I
can
don't
have a
think we should.
goal.
I
Go
don't
ahead.
think we should have a unit goal.
Okay.
I think if you want to have any goal, it's to get those 65 or whatever you were talking to that used to be on a list back on the list.
Yeah.
Because the other towns you're working with besides Torrington and Winsted, they don't have affordable housing or much of it, correct? They're
Well, I'm
under
also
the 10%.
working with, in terms of I'm also, if you want to go back to the 830G 10% thing, the other town I'm working with is North Canaan. And they're in the same boat as you guys, actually, is that their state's list is wrong. And they actually don't have 10%, but the state's list says they do. But they're coming up with a goal. But it doesn't, again, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to make you guys aware so that you don't come back to me and say, oh, they reviewed our plan and they said it was missing this. Why didn't you tell us?
Andy,
So-
are you saying that surrounding towns don't have affordable housing?
No,
Is that-
I'm not. I'm just
Oh.
saying the percentages are different. The percentages are different. So like if you look at other towns, they have affordable housing, but they don't have 10%, right? So the goal is to everybody's by this law or by over the past years when they identify 10% as the number, the goal is to get all towns to 10%, correct?
I thought the 10% strictly had to do with the fact that if you were under 10%, a contractor could come in. If you were not under 10%, contractor couldn't come in. I didn't view that as a need, that the need was only 10% and that's it. Jocelyn, can you clarify that?
I do think 830G causes some confusion. I think there is some sense that the state is saying that if a town has 10% of its housing as dedicated affordable, that it's somehow met its need for affordable housing. But I think that we have seen that that is not the case.
Oh, okay, then if it's the 10% is not related to this, then I would think even more that we don't need to put that goal in there.
Okay, well, again, I'm okay with taking this, you know, trying to come up with a unit goal out. And if you guys, you know, decide you want to add it back in at some other point, we can do that too.
I just don't understand how we can come up with a unit goal if we don't have something implemented in place to get there. Like
yeah, no, it's a
someone
good
says here,
question.
you
Yeah.
guys can have a $500,000 grant money, go do something with it. And then we'd say, okay, our goal is to get this building rehabbed so we can get X many units.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think what we've done in the other towns is sort of looked at the strategies that we have in place. And some of them have identified, you know, pretty specific ideas or projects, or have projects in the pipeline that they can point to. You know, obviously there are a couple things in here that could lead to a specific number of units, like if the old Winstead Hospital is renovated, or if some of the town-owned properties are utilized for housing, those could lead to, you know, a certain number of units that we could try to quantify. But again, it's up to the committee about whether you want to go through that exercise or just kind of say, look, here's our strategies and goals about how we're going to meet our housing needs.
Yeah, that last one.
Okay. All right. So, sorry. This is a challenge with Word, is that things move around on you. So these are, you know, these are basically slightly revised, but not significantly since the last many times we talked about the strategies. I did put in here, you know, in terms of plan implementation, I mean, I think it would be terrific to have an implementation team that includes, I just volunteered all you guys, Katie and Pam and Ted and Josh, you know, even just meeting quarterly, you know, and, or, you know, some of these other strategies in here, we're going to require those folks to meet about this stuff anyway, just to, again, try to touch on some of the things that are in here. So I think we had a housing plan implementation committee in here before.
Can I offer up some different language for that
Sure.
team?
Yep.
Could we change that to, and this is just with my knowledge of how much we're swamping our town manager with in general, especially with the new the infrastructure plan coming forward. He has to put together the entire, you know, with some of the people that he has to hire now in significant positions because of resignations. Is it possible to make that twice a year with, and then the language be town manager with appropriate staff, planning board representatives, and board of selectmen representatives?
So
So it'd be, obviously the town manager would pull people together with appropriate staff, because depending on the topic, he or she may want to bring different people there, because this is going to be something that's going to be written for the next 5 years. So
Right.
appropriate staff, I think planning board representatives representatives should be there based on everything that's in the current, everything that was listed in the plan today. And then also a Board of Selectmen representative.
So form a implementation team coordinated by the town manager and including appropriate staff. Does that
Yep.
sound right?
Yep.
Okay. I can look at this one more time to make sure it makes sense, but
I mean, you could do it later too.
yeah. Yeah, all right. And then and this calls for, and maybe we don't need both of these things. I guess I was thinking this team would talk more frequently, and then there would be an annual, just, a once a year gathering of the different entities that are tasked with this stuff. Just to update everybody on what they've done.
I didn't have any specific staff mentioned in there, like the economic development director, or social services coordinator. When I
Okay.
said appropriate staff, it would just be the town manager brings the staff with them, but not to signify any specific staff.
Okay. Okay. So planning commission, right?
For number 2, could you just say that the town manager would convene an annual review of the plan?
Yeah.
So that it is reviewed annually?
Yep. Or town manager will provide an annual summary report
Yeah.
of implementation. Okay. Ah. All right. Anything else on those implementation strategies? So then we get down to the first goal, about supporting redevelopment of existing buildings. Anybody have questions about these or comments?
How do you propose to encourage the creation and renovation of studio apartments at that price range? By giving them some kind of grant?
I guess what I was thinking was that when, staff like Ted or Josh or other folks were working with property owners who were talking about what they might want to do with their property, that they would just be able to say that this was a need that they've seen based on this housing plan study.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking, but.
Yeah, I just didn't, because rents are through the roof, like you said,
Yeah, I think that they probably wouldn't make the rent. They probably wouldn't put the rents at this unless they benefited from some program.
That's
that
what I was thinking.
doing that.
No investor is going to do that when it's all about the money.
Again, these are specifically the numbers that we saw when we asked the community college students kind of what they needed in terms of rents. So that's why I stuck it in there.
Yeah.
Just-
I mean,
Could you just put encourage the creation, renovation for NCCC students? And not list 1 or 2 bedrooms, not list the rent number, but just list it as, encourage creation for the college students.
Yeah, I mean, I was just being specific because this is what they said they wanted. I mean, we could just say of apartments for NCC students, and then I could put in parentheses that the survey results found that this is what they were looking for.
Right, but this is listed under strategies of what the town will do.
yeah, that's what was confusing me.
This is the strategy of what the town's going to do, not what people particularly want. The strategies may come from over there, but
Yeah, well, I guess I was just thinking that this information could be shared with property owners, when they were thinking about what they might want to do. There's this definitely, it seemed from the survey results, there's a clear desire for community college students to live in Winchester, and that this is what they're looking for.
wouldn't that then be just share the survey results to developers?
Yeah, I just thought this would, be another piece of information they could get without having to.
Well, I
read other sections of
get that, but that's not, I don't know that strategically that's, when you have your strategies to carry some of these things out, I don't see us being able to do all this.
With no resources.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying that just to be clear, I'm happy to make that whatever edits the committee wants me to make, but I don't, some of this is just kind of being clear with other folks what the town needs based on our needs analysis. And just working with private sector partners or nonprofit partners to get those kinds of options available.
Jocelyn, could you take a minute to review the potential resources available to us based on what Christine just said? Because I think there's a fear that there are no resources, and I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, I think again, in most of the communities in Litchfield County that I work with, there are typically 1 or 2 nonprofit housing organizations that end up doing a lot of the work to create these types of housing options. Again, some towns have, one nonprofit that does affordable homeownership and another that does affordable rentals.
But where does HUD come in?
There's a lot of support for those organizations, both for capacity building, for getting them the staffing resources that they need to do some of the things that are in here, but also to actually, build the units. So construction funding.
Right.
Again, there is a lot of money out there right now from the
Right.
state and the federal government to build these units. And there are a lot of, like I was talking about, this entity that just purchased and is renovating these units in Torrington. I mean, they do this all over the country. They get tax credits to fix up units and continue to make them affordable. So it's really just, and again, one of the things I intend for the Litchfield County Center to do is to continue to support the town and, whatever nonprofit entities you guys have moving forward, which will hopefully include the Housing Authority and the Torrington, sorry, the Winchester, I'm working on Torrington's plan today. The Winchester Housing Development Corp, kind of building their capacity to, again, at least preserve the units they have, if not expand the opportunities they can provide.
So just to recap and be clear, we're not proposing, and I don't think we ever were, that we go forward with any number of units that the town is going to bankroll, or that the taxpayers are going to bankroll, or that we're going to bond, or that this is all going to be accomplished based on federal and state money.
Right. Maybe I should make this clearer and say, yes. Katie,
So are you
yes.
gonna, is that gonna be put in there, that language you just said, that this is for, federal and state money and not local funding?
Yeah, she's typing it now.
Yeah, and if that isn't clear to you from this plan, I definitely 100% want to make it clear.
Yeah.
I mean, I could put it up in the introduction section. Okay. And I won't try to make this exactly right now, but I'll make a note for myself. Thank you for your question about that, Christine. All right, any other? I know we're going late here. So the next section is about town-owned properties, and basically, again, sort of identifying properties that could potentially be appropriate for housing, and then doing some kind of request for proposals process to find, developers who might create the types of housing that you're seeing a need for in this plan. Again, we aren't mentioning any specific properties here. We're being pretty general. Is that section okay with you guys?
Yep.
And then we're down to affordable home buyer options. Again, just mentioning really the CHAFA program, the USDA programs that are available, making sure people know about them. The option of potentially, again, anybody technically who wants to today could donate land to Northwest Connecticut Habitat. Let's see. So any questions on that section? And then I did have a little, what is Habitat, in case people want to know, since we're mentioning it. Okay. Then this is a section about preserving the dedicated affordable housing that you have now. And I'm going to stick in a strategy around seeing, again, the Nanny Drive properties, and seeing if we could work with that property owner to get those back on the list. And I have a little section here about what is the Housing Authority. I didn't have that much information. The Housing Development Corp doesn't have a website, or so I need to try to get a little bit more information to include on them.
Is this the one across from the lake?
Greenwood's Garden.
Yeah.
I don't know, Katie, do you know that, or Candy?
Do you know
Yeah,
where
it's on next to Carriage Maker Place off of Chestnut on Gay Street.
Oh, no. Okay. I was talking about the apartments that are up by the lake.
No, those aren't,
Affordable. Okay.
no. Yeah, they do kind of look like it, huh?
Yeah, they do. And I've never driven up to where these are, so I wouldn't have noticed.
All right, and then we just have some basic strategies around keeping seniors living affordably in their homes. And then the last goal is around protecting against displacement and poor housing conditions, where we talk about studying the Fair Rent Commission, just increasing awareness about what is already being done with blight remediation, and what has to be done in terms of inspections. So I think that's it. And then we've got anybody have questions about those sections or comments?
I had something come across my email. I thought it was from one of you about lead abatement in the program. Was that from someone in this group?
I don't think so.
'Cause that would be a good program to add here. Let me get one.
Yeah, actually, I just put it in the Torrington plan.
Let me go into
Is
my email. and
is
see.
it the Healthy Homes program?
I don't know. I'm going to pull it up right now and see. I thought it was very interesting though. Or I could forward it to you guys. That's what I'll do. I'll forward it to you so I don't take the time. Okay.
And I'll just put a note in here for myself. Okay, and then the appendix again is just kind of, the implementation table is really what I try to do is just stick all the strategies on one piece of paper. So that you could have like one sheet you printed out that you could reference if you want. So we could have that, or, I mean, it's not that hard to scroll through this plan, but anyway, I can create that if you guys would like me to. And
it came from Candy. She sent it to me and Pam over at Salvation Army. I thought it was someone from the group. Okay, I'll forward it over.
Okay.
All right.
We just lost Katie. She lost internet connection. So anyway, we could, if you guys have other resource links you think should be here, we can add them, but this is really just kind of, if you want more information, here it is. And then I put in this chart that just shows what you have now in terms of that inventory of dedicated affordable homes.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so that's where we are. I can certainly make the edits we talked about and get it back to you all. And in the meantime, again, if you have other things that you see or that you want included, feel free to email them to me or give me a call with them.
Okay. I just sent you the email.
Okay. And here, I'll just stop sharing. I think I'll talk with Pam about when we could get on to a planning and zoning commission agenda, but do you guys, after I make the edits that we talked about today, do you want to meet again?
You can make the edits. We don't need to, right?
It's all totally up to you guys.
I'd like to see the edits
Yeah.
that go in there, and we should meet briefly, maybe not as long.
Okay.
And then I also am going to recommend that prior to going to the P and Z to see them, that perhaps you have a discussion with the chairman of the planning and zoning to go over, what's in this, document and what's going to come before him ahead of time.
Okay.
Because I think they're probably going to have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if it's kind of like somebody comes in to do a new project in town. Sometimes they have what's called pre-development meetings.
Okay.
So, you could probably just do it by, you could do it like a Zoom with him or whatnot. It doesn't have to be with the whole committee, but just you explaining it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That's a good suggestion. Okay, so I will get the edits back to you. I will find out just in general what our options are for the next few meetings of the Planning and Zoning Commission and try to get a meeting with the chairman. And technically the next meeting of this group is actually not that far away. It's July 13th. That's the next regular meeting. So
I will be away for that
Okay.
meeting. I don't know if I'll have internet Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we're probably
I'm
gonna
not
have this
sure.
problem this summer anyway.
Well, I'll be overseas. I hope so. I'm not sure if I'll have a connection or not to come in.
are you going somewhere exciting?
But we have friends over in France that we haven't seen since the pandemic.
Nice.
We met them through a student exchange program when I was the principal up at the school. And then we
Nice.
became friends. So we're going to go over and see them for a little bit.
Nice.
Good.
Bring back some teas and champagne.
Well, maybe I'll I'll try to figure out what our options are for P and Z so we know kind of what we're working up to. And then I can do a doodle poll as well to see if, how many folks might not be able to make it to that meeting, since right now we only have half of us anyway. Again, because I do want to make sure that you guys are all comfortable with what's in this plan before we, publicly present it. All right, I think we have a game plan. And again, if there's anything else that you guys want to see in the plan,
Okay.
let me know. Between now and soon.
Okay.
I just want to say, don't misconstrue my comments as that you've done a great job with this, Jocelyn. Please don't.
Very good.
My pushing back is just from my time in town over all these years and all the things that I've done and accumulated and
Yeah.
visions and directions and stuff. So don't misconstrue me that I don't like that there's something about your work that's bothering. It's not. Your work is great. Always has been great. And everybody else's comments here are great too. It's just we all play different roles in this. And
Yeah.
so I just want you to know that.
Well, thank you. But yes, I'm happy to get your feedback, and I'm not at all taking it personally. It's your plan, and I want you guys to all feel very comfortable with it. And I'm happy to add whatever or take out whatever we need to. So I really appreciate all of your time. I know we went over today. Anything else before we?
No, we're getting closer and closer each month.
Yeah, I mean, there's an actual document now, so.
We couldn't have done this without you, though.
Nice job.
All right,
Thank you.
have a good week, everyone.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.